Let me know if you can hear me. Just want to test the audio before we get started here. Perfect. Looks like you guys can hear me. We'll get started here in a couple of minutes. Can you see the screen? Again, we're trying to work through. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would watch YouTube tutorials on how to do these live events. And if I've done it correct, you should be seeing me in the lower right-hand quadrant of your screen. The web page in the center there, and a nice little Pup Nation logo in the top left. So if you are seeing those three things, then another thumbs up or confirmation would be appreciated this evening. Give a couple more minutes for everyone to hop on here. Don't want to start too early. Said 8:30, so we'll honor that to be able to go through. I know it's a challenge to be able to get here on time, and want to make sure that, again, we don't start too early. If you've got questions, though, feel free to start us out in the chat box. I will do my best to follow along. I've got kind of multiple screens here. And kind of working through this, and YouTube for the win. Yes, YouTube is I'll tell you what, I've watched a lot more tutorial videos than I ever thought possible to kind of learn through these things. So I'll get my schedule there from the background and get a little different view there for you all before we get started. About 2 more minutes, 3 more minutes it looks like. Got to get a couple more things together and then we'll get started. Get a little reminder there for me. Again, about 2 more minutes, so if you've got a couple questions that are out there, anything that you want to throw out, feel free to throw that in the chat. We'll kind of go through those. I've got a couple of things that, as there's downtime, I'll try to address and go through. I'll start out with kind of showcasing a little bit of our planned and available website. I think a few days ago when we announced that kind of went a little sight unseen, and I think there's been a few things and questions as far as going on regarding things that are in that document, and so I kind of want to point those out and kind of start off with that, and then we'll kind of go from there. So again, if you've got some things that you would like to know, throw that in the chat box. I see some other questions. I'll try to keep track of those, but again, as people throw stuff, it may scroll fast, so if I miss over it, please just throw it back up again or reiterate, and I'll do my best. So I'm going to start writing down a few of these that I already see being submitted. That way I don't forget any of them. So, so registration and physicals, and then remote versus play. Athletics. Power school. Okay, so I've got 3 good questions. I have 8:30 on the dot, so we're going to go ahead and get started, kind of go through this together as we work through a variety of things this evening. First and foremost, I appreciate you taking the opportunity and the time. For all those, again, to reiterate and just as a reminder, this will be posted later. So if you miss something or you're wondering or it moves too quick, just understand that this will be on our Pup Nation YouTube site. So we will download the video, upload it there for your availability. It'll also stay on our social media on Facebook Live. So it'll be a past post that you can look at, as well as some other avenues. So again, if you kind of go through, don't be afraid if you miss anything. And if you see me jotting down or looking the side, it's me trying to write down questions and keep up. I'm up here solo tonight, kind of running through, but saw a lot of questions that were kind of going on surrounding as we kind of got back to beginning, as we were kind of getting closer and closer to school beginning and starting, and wanted to be able to take a quick time to take a live event this evening, as well as post a video. So earlier this evening, posted about a 15-minute video that kind of walks through some different aspects of the reopening. Again, it doesn't address everything. I know there's specific questions that we'll get to tonight that may not have been there, but we just put some common ones that we had been seeing reoccurring. First and foremost, what I'm going to start with, and you should be able to see on your screen hopefully, is our actual reopening plan. And so if you go to our homepage, so just caney.com, that's available there. And essentially all you will do to be able to navigate that, and I got to resize my screen here so I can actually make sure that I see what you guys are seeing, hopefully, and go through that. So again, as you go to caney.com, you simply go to our homepage there, and right at the very top, we wanted to make this as easy as possible for everyone. You will see our reopening plan right there on the top window, to make sure that it was available, easy to be seen. So you click on the reopening plan, and that again was released last week. Kind of gives you an overview of some small things. You'll see the Montgomery County plan. So again, first and foremost, one of the things that the school districts and superintendents talked about was the need for some consistency. We saw early on that having, again, local choice and decision is a great thing as it goes through, but when we looked at the prospect of kids jumping from district to district because of one aspect of a plan, and then coming back, and the reality of that, we felt it was very important to all be on the same page. That started with a cohesive work with the other superintendents, so I do appreciate Dr. Kimplinger up in Cherryville, Dr. Carell over in Coffeyville, and then Rusty Arnold, Mr. Arnold up in Independence, and myself, along with the county health officials. So it was great to be able to work with Carolyn Mueller and Rick Whitson regarding the plan that we had developed overall. And so you'll see that that's kind of the first thing that's on our site. And so you'll see the county reopening plan, something that's consistent across the districts. Again, there's going to be some small things that are going to be different in between them, but overall we wanted to keep some consistency as it went through, especially for those in Montgomery County. We felt that was very important because we do have students that are on the border and that move back and forth as they flow through. To reiterate, as we go through now, I'm going to try to jump over the questions, but I can't see that on my screen. So if there are things thrown up there, I don't have the ability to see that together along with this window, but I'll pop back and forth, I promise you. So again, that Montgomery County plan is there. If you were to click on that link, it'll pull it up, and you'll see that we have a crisis mitigation plan that kind of talks through responsibilities, things that go along with this as we go through it, not only from the admin side of things, but staff and students, where a lot of that information came from, protective measures that are going to be in place. All those things are there. I'm not going to go over it in detail, But I do think that that's a good starting point to understand as we look at Montgomery County as a whole, how this was developed, what we look at when it comes to cleaning and disinfecting, exposure, what happens when that comes on. And again, we're actually having a follow-up meeting on Friday to look specifically about how do we handle that student by student when we look at the difference between an elementary student versus a high school because of cohort reasons, things of that nature. Those are things that we're still kind of working through. We have some tentative things that are already in that plan. But again, just like everything and you've seen, and I'll preface that, everything that we're showing you is subject to change. And I hate to kind of go that route, but I think it's important to understand that we are under a lot of things that are that can expire, that can change at any moment, and especially with the medical field and like any science, as we get better and we know how to address certain things, then the knowledge of what's going on is going to change, and together we're going to make those changes and do what's best for our kids overall. So that's the first thing I wanted to show you, just so you can kind of glance through that. For those that we have sample notification, all those things that are in there that are available to kind of see how those things go through. But at the back, one thing that I think for those that are interested in the research and the things that go along with it, those that like the data and the information, those are cited at the very end of the plan overall as well. And so you'll see where that was developed from. So where are we pulling that from? Where's that information? And again, all these things have been updated. You can see some of the most recent just from the beginning of July as we kind of go through and looking at CDC. All those things have been we keep up to date with as we move through that. So that's kind of first and foremost, I wanted to show that. Again, we're going to go back to our reopening plan. Following that, we have our calendar, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, along with what we call like a 2-page or a 1-page front and back kind of highlight of both Lincoln and the junior and senior high school. And so you'll see those plans are available there. We wanted to put that in one place that took a lot of things that are within our plan and consolidated it so it was easily to be able to see. Doesn't encompass everything, but again, those common questions we anticipated, and we'll edit and add to that as we see things that come up as well. So let me pop back and where I can actually see questions, and then we'll kind of go from there. I'll show you through the calendar because that's one of the first things that is changing, and then we'll kind of continue along this together. Let's see here. I want to make sure I got these in order, so I'll address those as they go on. All right, so first and foremost, let's start with a little bit of the change on the calendar as a quick understanding. Our pre-K and K, again, those students will be starting at a later date, and so I want to make sure that everyone kind of understands that. If this works, we're going to get rid of the website view, and we're going to add the calendar view. So let's see this. There we go. I'll just keep the website in the background. But the calendar, again, one of the things that we changed was moving some of our professional development days. Again, not really affecting the overall total days and things that go along with our students or our staff, but moving some of those professional development days to the beginning to begin working through a lot of these things that are in progress. And so you'll see at the beginning now, instead of starting on that Thursday and Friday, now we basically have pushed that back. And so we have a few extra days to begin planning and going through some of those scenarios. And then our students were excited to see them back on August 26th. And so again, that's the first change. That calendar's been posted and updated. It's available on our social media. It's on our website. All that has been updated. It's available in the board office if you'd like to come and pick it up in print. And so you can go there anytime to be able to see those things as well. But the calendar is kind of the first major change as we kind of go through that. Let's go to our first couple of questions on there. And so I'm going to scroll back up to make sure that I don't skip over any. It says here, do you have to register a high school student at the school even though they have to be at there for a phys? I'm thinking what I'm gathering from that possibly is if I'm up there for a physical, can I register them? Absolutely, you can go through that process. If you don't want to, which as a returning student, go for the online enrollment. We highly encourage that. Those have all been sent to your email that's on file. If you did not receive a welcome email with the SNAP code to register your returning student, let us know. Just message us on our social media or email, and we'll get that SNAP code to you so you can start that process. Very easy. You can go through. Once you do one student with your updated demographic info, you can migrate it to your second student, and it's awful quick to get that done. So if you're there, we highly encourage that. We'll have tables spaced out and laptops, again, with the social distancing. And just like with everything this year we're going to talk about, according to the executive order that we're under, again, EO 2059, these things will be mandatory. And I know that that's a point that a lot will be out there, but when we look at face coverings, that is something that is mandated right now. And so make sure that when we look at that or come on, that applies to anyone that is entering a school facility. That's very clear. And that's set to go all the way through at least until September 15th when that executive order would expire. Now, again, things could change. There's a lot of things that are up in the air as it goes through, but for right now, that's kind of one thing that stays with that. Next question we had was the benefit of not allowing remote students to play. That's a great question. In the beginning, together, when we began to think through all the variables, we looked at it from a mindset of if a parent were choosing not to send their child to school or because of safety, again, because they didn't want to expose them to the virus, because they didn't want to run that risk of them getting sick and bringing it home or having that happen, then in our mind, we didn't understand why an individual would want to participate in a potential contact athletic or activity. What we're seeing since then, that again, fully admit we did not take into consideration, is that for a segment of the population, students who are going to be remote learning or going through that are because of the hesitation with the face coverings. It's not of a fear of the virus. It's not of an issue with them bringing something back and getting someone sick in their family. And so that will be up for continued discussion at the next board meeting. So I'll fully admit, as we kind of went through that was a scenario that we discussed with superintendents across the state. That again, every league school, we spoke with them today, are not allowing at this time outside of one. So Fredonia is the only league school that's allowing that to happen with remote learners. But again, it's up for discussion. It's like everything, it's fluid. But when we assessed the situation, we made an assumption, clearly did, that if you were not going to send your child because of fear of the virus, of contracting it, then why would we look at remote learning students being participants in a contact activity or athletic? So that's kind of our rationale as that went through. Power School should be up shortly. Again, we always finalize schedules and things of that nature before we release it and go open and go live. And so just like last year and all that, realize that those things can shift around as we begin to enroll students and look at how many remote learners are we going to have versus on-site. I can promise you we're probably going to have another shift. Those are things that are going to happen as it goes through. And so although it will be open and available soon, it's not one, again, you'll want to keep checking it. The schedule that you may receive, and many of you know this from years past, on day one usually is relatively correct, but this year of all years could be very different depending on the number of students that we have remote versus on-site. Lockers, great question. So essentially, for those that would like a locker, we're going to make those available. They're not going to be issued as a mandatory requirement. And because of that, again, we're going to allow a clear bag. So if you'd like to bring a bag to be able to transport some of those items, then you're more than welcome to do that at the junior and senior high school. But again, just ask us if you'd like one. We'll make those available. But again, our intent is not to issue them as a mandatory thing as it goes through. That was one of those recommendations that we're trying to work through as best as we can. But we realize for some there may be a need. And so we'll issue those if a student needs that. Bell schedule shouldn't change significantly. That's the next question that was on there. We'll kind of look through that, and there may be a couple of modifications, but it won't be anything real major. The one thing you will see is some dismissal times that'll vary a little bit, simply because we want to be able to alleviate traffic as best we can as we dismiss. We're not talking about sending people home 30 minutes early. It'd be a couple of minutes to make room for that, whether it be those that are transporting themselves, whether it be, again, bus riders. We'll look at that and that'll be part of our process to kind of ensure the social distancing, because again, that's the other part of the executive order. Besides the face coverings, it's also the social distancing. Again, something together that we have to work through and determine what's going to be best for us here in Caney. Is school going to shut down every time someone gets tested? No. That's one of the things we're meeting about on Friday. What we've been told up front, the big rule that we're going to be talking about is that contact tracing, and it's that 6-foot rule, 10 minutes or more. And so we'll be working hand in hand. Actually, the county health will be the one who determines who it is that has to quarantine or go through. The extreme situation, if we had multiple cases with staff, students, community, if it's widespread at that point, then obviously we may look at a situation where we're either hybrid or remote learning for everyone as we kind of go through that. But the reality is that the first time that this may happen, especially if it's in elementary, that's in a smaller cohort where we can contact trace a small number of individuals around, we're not going to have the necessity to shut down an entire school. Again, we'll rely on the health department to help us with that. That's something that a medical professional should make a determination of. That by no means is something that I want our staff or administration trying to determine. We're not skilled with that. We're going to rely on those that have years of expertise, that understand the virology and the things along with this virus, and together make that decision as we go through. But again, that'll depend on the situation and the number of cases that we have. Are students that are doing remote learning required to be logged on a device all day? So the one thing that the way we picture remote learning to go through this is that what we're going to ask of students is to pop on when they normally would during that hour. So let's say at 8 o'clock, that's the hour that they have English, 9th grade English. So they'll log on. Students will visually basically make themselves seen real quick for the teachers to be able to verify attendance. Again, that's a requirement from the state side of things in order for us to count those students as remote learners and basically help us out overall as a district. And so it'll be a quick and easy check. We could do logs, we could look at other things, but we wanted to make this as easy as possible for everyone involved in the remote learning. So they'll pop on. There may be an opportunity where they will be logged on during that class period for whatever reason, whether it's their first hour that's going through. But what we envision, especially at the junior and senior high school, is that those lessons will be recorded probably during first hour. They'll be uploaded to Google Classroom, and then that student, once they check in, can go watch the lesson, complete it, and then they pop back on during their second hour. So again, the expectation, that whole idea of 6 hours in front of a computer without movement, that's not going to be our idea. When we look at PE and some of those electives and things that we have, we're going to be doing a lot of activities that's going to get students out and about. So I don't want you to think of remote learning as traditional virtual computer only where I never leave that. We have to get you guys out and engaged and involved just like we would with the student in the classroom. And so remote learning will take that on, where we basically have you check in, we make sure we may post that lesson, there may be an activity, and then again we'll facilitate that ability for them to talk and know those teachers that they've already had for many of them, and for some that, again, whether it be siblings or parents that they're connected to. We want to keep that personal touch. The last thing we want is some random online program with a teacher who has no idea about the student's unique needs taking over your child's education, because we firmly believe our staff, this community, is best built to address that with our own unique needs here in Pup Nation with the Bullpup family. Does every child need a physical? No. If you're participating in activity or athletics, that's one where you'll need that. It's a wellness check if you'd like to go through that. It's always a good thing if you'd like to, but it's not a requirement. So let's see. Is it true? So resources, essentially, this is one where we've been lucky with federal assistance and help, along with state help as well on resources. We currently I have an application in with the county for over $100,000 worth of some partial reimbursements and future expenses on resources for the classroom. Nobody anticipated the amount of need that we would have for face coverings, for disinfectant, for hand sanitizer, for all those things that we're going to need to operate school. And again, the government has done a good job responding on helping do that. Now, we're not set to know till September 15th on a lot of those items, but we've been assured that those funds will be there to help us out in many areas, and we're going to be able to do that. So when it comes to people moving in and out and with remote, we anticipate a little bit of that happening. We know that some parents will choose to start remote and realize that that's not for them with their child a week or so in. Others will come back to school and a week or two in realize that I just don't feel comfortable and I want to go remote. And so we're going to be flexible with that. The reality is that we're going to show the same grace to community and students that we hope to receive in return and that we have as we navigate this situation. I don't think anyone out there expects and knows that we're going to have all the answers. But I do know as a community, you expect us to do what's right with the information we have available and what's best for our kids. And so that's the promise that I can assure you. I have no doubt that our staff and our entire community will work towards that. But again, it's going to look very different, and it is going to be it's going to change. But together, we'll get through this. I have no doubt. Let's see here. Yep, I appreciate the comment again on the sports side of things with the eligibility. Again, that was an oversight. We didn't look at that or think of that as we go through. We certainly should have. I'm the first to admit when we make a mistake, we're going to own it. That's one that we didn't even anticipate. Our assumption again was that if a kid wasn't coming and they chose remote learning, it was because of a concern with the virus, not because of a mask issue. And so again, I think it'll be up for continued discussion as it goes through. However, I will point out again, there's only one league school that is allowing that participation with remote, and that's been the consistent theme across the state so far with the majority of schools. Again, there are some that are opting out and allowing that participation. However, that's not by any means the majority right now. Again, that can change, but that's the situation currently. Can a student choose remote? And then absolutely. If you choose remote and you're waiting for that mask mandate to change and then return with us, again, we have to be flexible. That's who we are. Is when we think about this town and this community, we respond to individual needs and what's best for that child. We firmly believe the child with us is the best thing, but we also know it's got to be where parents feel safe and the community feels safe that they are in our buildings. And so if there's a hesitation early on, absolutely, we're going to encourage, let's go remote, let's help you feel comfortable. Maybe it's popping in a day a week to see what it looks like, to understand the operations and know how things are going to go, because quite frankly, we're not sure how it's going to go until everyone's back. We could have no cases and we could have 100 cases within a week. But again, that'll be something that we'll relate to, and we're going to work with you. By no means do we want to lose anybody to this, to a virtual program that isn't our own, to any other situation other than remote or on site, because we firmly believe that we can offer and meet an individual child's needs if given that opportunity. Mesh bags, mesh bags are clear. I'm going to make that decision unless the board overvotes me otherwise or tells me. So sorry, Mr. Lilford, Mr. Earlier, but I know that they understand. Just something clear as it goes through. So mesh or clear would be okay. Lockers in PE will still be assigned. We'll probably utilize that as it goes through. Again, we're going to want to keep that individual locker sanitized and available for that student. So just in general, lockers overall for that as it goes through. How much time is expected? That's a requirement set by the state. So we're looking for basically, I think it's 5 classes, 6 hours is what that's going to be. Now again, online is not talking I'm sitting in front of a computer 6 hours at a time. That is not what we're looking at when we're talking about remote learning. Online simply means I'm checking in at some point during those 6 hours, during those multiple sessions. So our reading block, for example, at the elementary level, maybe 90 minutes. So they may check in at 8 o'clock and then not check back in until 9:30 at their next block. And we may assign activities, manipulatives, things of that nature, because every grade is very, very different. It's going to look different for a senior as opposed to a kindergartner for those that may choose remote learning for those that are that young. Again, pre-K and K aren't starting until later, but let's just say a first grader. And so the reality is together we're going to formulate that and go through, but I don't want to give the impression that remote learning is 6 hours on and I never look away from a screen. We can't do that for our kids. That's not what's best for them, but we want to provide as much of an on-site personalized experience but at home. So there will be times where they're watching a video. There may be times where they're following along because we've got a class discussion. We really want them to be a part of it during that day. Or they're presenting to their classmates because we're still able to do that virtually. We're able to present from afar even if I'm not on site. And so we'll practice that with our students. We're actually going to have what we call on-site remote days, where basically the teacher will be utilizing technology to work them through that. Because we want to be prepared if a situation were to come up. One of the questions was, what if we have to shut down? We have to prepare and be better prepared for that than we were in the spring with our continuous learning, which is why remote learning is going to look so different as we go through. Remote learners, are teachers available during that hour? Yes. That's why we want to be able to have that. So if you're a remote learner and you've got a question, we want you to log on and have that ability to connect with our teachers, whether it be through email, whether it be through a Google Classroom, Meet, virtually where they can do that. We want to have that ability to connect. We don't want to, this isn't a situation where you say, hey, go on the computer and handle it on your own. That's what the benefit of remote learning is we want to create as much of a normal experience as we can on site at home as we move forward together. Yes, Miss Kiersey, that's right. Clear backpacks or tote bags. So basically for safety reasons is what we're kind of looking at. Yep. So school dances, pep rallies, and assemblies. I know that was a common question. When we look at that, the majority of those, when we look at it, assemblies especially, they're virtual for right now. Until we receive other guidance, those things are going to be limited during that time. Now, we're going to get creative about it. That's the one thing that I'm assured of with our staff and our community. Graduation is a great example. That event and the things that went surrounding that and the Shoot the U event were not something that we sat down with 3 people and had the best idea ever and did it on our own. We solicited, much like we will with this, about how do we address, okay, if we can't all be together in a large setting, how do we go about having a virtual pep rally, or how do we go about still having school spirit or dances or whatever it may be? And we're open to that. We're going to utilize students' expertise, parents' expertise, staff expertise, community expertise to know how we're going to address some of those things and make it unique and special together for Caney and for Pup Nation. So will there be accommodations? Yeah, we're going to be talking and looking at local areas where we could kind of work through that, where we look at internet access. One of the things that we are negotiating and finalizing now are hotspots for those that are in our most need. And so we realize that there are some that may not have internet access because of where they're at. We've looked at a couple of different cell services. As many of you know, though, we may have one that works really well out toward Tyro and a completely different carrier that's better for Niates. And so we're working through that to see how we can go through, but we don't want to prevent anyone from remote learning just because of an internet access issue. So reach out to us, let us know that that's a concern. And again, we're going to do everything that we can to make sure that we accommodate every individual child's need, because in the end, that's what it's about. When we look at this overall, and I think that's one, I'll take my little opportunity to get on a little tangent real quick while we're all together. I know there are those that are questioning both sides. Why are we reopening and why aren't we just opening normal? So the reopening question, I think it goes back to how we approached excuse me, food service in the spring. All of us who got into education, it was for the kids. There was a reason. We all went through an experience or something inherently that caused us to want to give our service to community members, to their students, and to educating children. But that a lot of times comes from seeing kids who have very, very high needs that are not addressed at home. And if school's not open, kids go without food. They go without emotional support that they need. They go without so many things that they have to have. that they wouldn't survive without. And so I think that when we look at it, when we look at reopening, the last thing we want to do it is at the risk of anybody's safety or health. But I also understand and know that if we don't reopen, that kids are potentially abused. Kids have lack of access to a loving adult, to food, to basic necessities. And so that drive, again, is not going to come at the threat of putting others at risk, because we've got everything that we can within a reasonable route to make sure that we're safe and open. But we've got to get these kids back. We miss them all from that standpoint, but we know more importantly that this time off, so for some of them, they haven't had that adult supervision and things that they need to just survive on a day-to-day basis. And so we're going to do everything that we can to meet that as we go through. Are kids allowed to wear fabric or homemade? Yeah, they can wear the homemade, the mask that we have, and let me grab one real quick. So I've got a couple of different examples here. They're a fabric that we've had made. Every student is going to receive 3 of these. And so we've got 3 masks that are varying sizes and also will be adjustable on the straps. That's one thing. I hate to call it Mr. Lilford again, but he had a mask that was way too big for him. And so it kept sliding down while he's talking. And again, we've learned things as we've ordered this stuff. We're trying to do our best. And one size does not fit all, I can tell you that much. And so again, we've got a couple of different designs. Each student will receive 3 of these. And so I'll kind of get a little close there. You can see kind of our district logo on that one. We've got a Lincoln Learn available one too. Those are our first 2 designs. And again, we've got 2 more coming as well. And so again, we're here at Lincoln to learn, think, and care. Obviously, we do those great things together. So again, those masks will be available. We're looking at some gator options as well. So again, some of those may prefer that. And so we've got some of those that we're looking at. If you've got a homemade or a design, I know my son wanted to know you one, and so he's got one that he's got available. My daughter's got a neon design one that she's going to wear. So by all means, you can have a homemade. We've got disposable ones that we'll have available too, because for some of those are really comfortable as well. And so we'll have a disposable that'll be available. We're looking at a variety to make this as easy as possible. While we're on masks, one thing that I know is out there: how's my kid going to wear a mask all day long? They're not going to. We will have breaks built in. This is something that we have to slowly get them used to. You're going to see us outside more than ever with transitions and times to give social distancing with 6 feet and to be able to take off those masks. They have to be able to be allowed that time. We know that that's going to be something that's going to be difficult. For many of you, that's the biggest question. How in the world are we going to get kids to wear them, especially at a young age? What I can tell you is, and I promise you this, kids are more resilient than adults with this. I promise you. I've seen it happen, and I know. Well, my kid fidgets. I understand that, and we're going to work through those things individually, like we would with any kid who's fidgety in class, who may talk out when they shouldn't. We're going to have that same approach that we would on any other separate issue as we would with a mask. For some of them, it's not going to be a big deal at all. They've been wearing it at church. They've been doing it out in the community when they're out and about. It's not going to be a hard transition. For others, they haven't touched it at all. And so just like we get students when they come in that are on different levels when it comes to behavior, it's an individual thing. Our teachers are wonderful at that. They will begin to identify and know what's unique about your child and know, hey, it's been about 10 minutes and Billy needs to get up and make a lap without a mask away from everyone. We're gonna have to show grace, and we will. This isn't gonna be a police state where we're enforcing every second and on everybody. You know, if the mask slides down a little bit, we're gonna tell them, hey, pull it back up and get it where it needs to be, no problem, and then we keep going on. This isn't a situation where we're going to have or attempt to, again, suspend kids over this or work through. We're just going to work with the parameters that we have, again, under that current executive order until something were to change, and then move from there as best as possible to keep everyone safe. Keep going through. I'm sure we could probably arrange to sell a mask, but again, every kid, 3 masks. We're going to give you one. At the end of the day, we'll wash mask number 1. And then together we'll hand that back out, which will be like on the 4th day. And then mask 2 again gets washed, and then mask 3, so on and so forth. So we always have a good rotation to keep those clean. We want to handle that. We don't want to worry about them going home and getting lost. We've got, again, detergent that's specialized for that to be able to go through that. And so again, we'll have names on there, so that, again, no child's mask is going to get mixed up. But again, we'll have those available. We've got the designs already in. We've got the first set in. And then, again, once the mask mandate came out, we kind of scrambled and added 2 additional ones. Always had the one available just kind of as a just in case. But with the actual mandate, especially at the elementary, we'll have them in on time. We're assured they should be here within the next week. But we've got 2 more additional, again, 3 total designs together for all of our students and staff. Class changes will be through our counselor. Just give them an email if you don't want to come on site, or you can come on for enrollment tomorrow if you have some changes that are out there. Let's see here. I want to make sure I don't skip anything. Let's see here. Clear mesh. We kind of got through some of those. What's a mesh? Just if you think of like a laundry bag, the mesh that kind of has the holes in it, so you can be seen inside, or clear is kind of what we're looking at when we say a mesh backpack. Let's see here. Go through. Yeah, so busing, the way that'll happen is basically when students come on, they'll be required to have a mask. We'll have a temperature check, so we'll have a little temperature gun to kind of go through, and that'll be again, something that we do as students come on during that. Again, in cases where we have the availability, and again, we've looked at this, without additional drivers, which again, I hate to sidestep, but I think it's important, as always, for those who may not be aware of Mr. Anderson, thoughts and prayers to him and his family as he navigates everything. But as situations come up and drivers aren't available, the difficulty is there to expand routes or to add so we have more spacing. So we've done our best. We're going to maximize spacing as we can. We're going to have the mask. We're going to disinfect before and after every single route to kind of go through that and mitigate that. As students come on and off, we'll have hand sanitizer. Again, we'll do another temperature check when they get to the building in case for some reason they happen to develop a fever while they're on the bus. We're going to do everything that we can to kind of go through that process and make sure that they're taken care of. And so busing, that's kind of how that'll transpire. Again, we'll sit in family units. That'll be the biggest thing as we go through this, is that we have to be able to work in conjunction with the health department, that if we have a case, let's say it's my son, to be able to trace who was within 6 feet of him for more than 10 minutes. And so if he sits on that bus next to my daughter, then we're going to know that that's one, and then potentially the seat either in front or beside as we go through to be able to look at that. Staying consistent with that, those seating charts will be important, so when we have that situation arise, we can help determine who's at risk and who may need to be quarantined potentially. Again, if we were just to let that run free, then we wouldn't have that ability to narrow that down and again prevent what could be an all schools shutdown. That's not what we want. So again, we'll keep charts on that no matter where they're at, whether it be in the cafeteria, whether it be in elective classes, whether it be in their core, whether it be in their main. Those are things that they go through. Volunteers, no, I appreciate the help for volunteers on screening temps, but actually we have some great machines that are coming in that are going to be, they go up to, I think it's 30 people per minute that can screen. They're extremely fast, that are going to be there. We're also going to have, again, the handheld temp guns as well. And so we feel good right now. If something were to change, I'm writing your name down and you'll be the first to know if we need some help with screening. Because again, we need everyone's help to do this together. And that's what I love about this community. It is time and time again, we've proven that together as a family, together as Pup Nation, that we can overcome anything that we face. And I know there's a lot of uncertainty, and it's hard to give reassurance that, well, that's the only thing I can, give is that we're going to do our best. But we will do everything that we can with safety precautions, with health precautions to make sure that those needs are met as it goes through. Let me see if I had any other questions that I skipped over. Yeah, so we had a question and I had a reply typed in there again. When we look at pediatricians and guidance that are going on, I think that's probably where a little bit of the confusion came out. when the plan initially came out from the state, the initial guidance back in July, mid-July, the recommendation wasn't for the young kids. And it wasn't from CDC for the young kids to wear them as well. Since that time, that has changed from the CDC, from pediatrics, and from what we know as far as what was been given to us. And so actually, our guidance document from the state has been modified to adjust for the younger kids. CDC has said that as well, that the risk outweighs by not wearing those. That wasn't the case less than a month ago, but now it is. And so like some science does, they've done the research. Again, people that are much smarter than I am, that understand how viruses work, that understand how these things transmit to each other. They've done enough to make that statement and definitively stand behind that. And again, until something were to counter that or the executive order were to change, then we go off of that within the executive, within that order, within that mandate, or until we get different guidance from CDC or again from the state of Kansas. Let's see here. Lunchtime passing periods, again, just as a reminder as that goes through, we're going to do our best to space out through that. Again, what we know and what we've been told from local health is, again, that infrequent passing. So we know we're going to come and cross every once in a while or be, again, we're not going to have like a monitor out there with a yardstick for 6 feet to make sure that it's too much. I mean, we're going to do everything within a reasonable thing to assure that. We're going to talk about distancing. We're going to know, but there are going to be times in and out of the bathroom where I might happen to cross. That's why masks are so important. That's why we're going to be talking about washing your hands with hand sanitizer, those things of that nature. We'll look at kind of tiered dismissals if we have to. Again, kind of like at the end of the day, to do whatever we can to minimize, again, that traffic and overflow as we go with passing periods and things of that nature. Kids will not be eating lunch in the classroom at this time. We're going to be spacing out in the cafeteria. We'll be utilizing our gym as well. And so we'll be looking at a way to kind of space out students to ensure social distancing. So that way when the masks are off, again, I can't eat with this on. So when they're off, again, together, they'll be able to eat away safely within recommendations. When they're done eating, they'll put it back on. So we'll space out with that. So nothing will look real different from that perspective other than that we're going to be spaced out. So students will still receive choices and options, which has been great with our new food service program through OPA. And so again, that's something we've had for the last couple of years. Everything will be kind of started as a pre-package, but they'll still be able to choose, if I want some peaches or if I want a side salad, so we'll have those things kind of pre-packaged and available. The choice will still be there, except they just won't be handling it themselves to kind of minimize that. So again, another way to keep that safe. Eat alone within 6 feet of someone. So hopefully within 6 feet isn't alone. I mean, you're going to be nearby. But again, you're not going to be sitting side by side because of the mask issue and that requirement. So again, that's a good question. But no, eating alone, we're still going to be in a class setting. They're still going to be there in those cohorts together, but we'll just be spaced out a little bit. So that'll be the only difference. Let's see here. Some other things, again, that I kind of want to go through just as a reminder. I kind of hit on the calendar a little bit. Lincoln, again, and CVHS, well, junior and senior high school, kind of have their collective plans that are out there. And so I'll kind of throw those up on the screen now. But you can kind of see those as it goes through. Let me get that window there in the background. It kind of has some common things that are there regarding Lincoln's reopening, so snacks and recess. And I won't go into all that because I'm almost time out on the live, so I'd rather kind of throw specific questions. But take some time to read through those. Those are kind of the highlights that we knew there would be questions about. And again, that's available on the website with our reopening plan. We've had that out for a while, but I think that kind of got lost in the shuffle and community were not aware of that. Take full ownership of that. But again, that's up and available and something that you guys can see as well. So again, the Lincoln plan is up there, and then the junior, senior high school plan is up as well, which I'll throw up there. Again, so kind of those general guidelines, what that'll look like. Locker use, face coverings, things of that nature, assemblies, all those things that we kind of talked a little bit about tonight are there as well. And again, that's all available on our website. And so again, to kind of take you through that, make sure you just go to caney.com. From caney.com, right at the top, you'll see our reopening plan. And again, that'll be available. You just click right there on the reopening plan. And that'll take you through not only the county plan, Talks a little bit about choices that are available between remote and on-site, our school calendar, the modification that's there, and then kind of what we're calling the 1-page, 2-page common ask questions with Lincoln, and also with the junior, senior high school that's available. And if you keep going, you got a supply list. And so one of the things that'll be out there again with remote, I touched a little bit on remote learning, but our handbook is there as well about kind of how that'll work with remote learning. So make sure you kind of peruse through that. And then again, to echo to everyone together, because this is really important. I know there are going to be questions. Please don't overlook just reaching out to, whether it be myself, to call directly, to email, to go through those things. Excuse me. I see a lot that may throw out a question on social media in general, just on their own page. I've got a lot of friends, which is amazing on Facebook. But again, just like all Facebooks, I don't have everyone's feed to know what's going on. So if you've got burning questions, desire, let me know, so that way together we can go through this. That way together we can solve this, and that way together in the end we're able to make sure that we address your concerns and they don't go unquestioned. So I appreciate those that have been kind of posting and going through some of that. That's what prompted a little bit of this live feed. I'll do another one again if we need it as we kind of migrate, because things will change. And again, reach out, let me know how I can help out. Email, you can send that through the school Facebook. I try to look at that all times of the night. I know some of you have gotten responses back at 2 or 3 a.m. and I apologize, but if I wake up in the middle of the night, I don't want anyone waiting. I don't hide my cell phone. It's on my business card. Everyone knows where I live down on Wood Street. So come find me when you need to. I always want to make myself available, because I truly believe the last thing I want is for a question to go unanswered and for confusion to be out there for anybody as we go through that. So again, website's a good starting point. Those documents are really good. Some of those questions are on there, and that's a kind of a good thing. So let's go back to questions real quick, because we're kind of winding down, and I'm going to have to end the live because I'm kind of limited on an hour. Let's see here. Let's see here. If a sibling's exposed, do all of them need to stay at home? That'll be a decision by the health department, just like with anybody else. If you were to come down with symptoms and to be tested tomorrow, the health department is the one who's going to make that determination. So for us to say blanket yes or no, I don't have that answer. We're going to rely on the medical professionals who have much more experience in this area regarding the virus than us as administrators of the school. And so essentially we'll utilize that as an opportunity to kind of go through and see how that works out. But again, siblings, we're not sure kind of how that'll work out, depending on, again, have they been around him for that? More than likely, yes. If a sibling is exposed, that's probably a possibility. But we also know there are family dynamics. For some of them, they may be in separate areas of the house. For some of them, they may not interact as much. For my 2 kiddos, there's no way. They wrestle all the time and bug each other, and there's just no way that I could assure that they haven't been around each other within 6 feet for more than 10 minutes because they're constantly having fun and arguing and all sorts of fun stuff that kids do. So, again, varied situation. We'll rely on the health department when that comes up. Let's see here. Any other questions that popped up? I know there's a couple other ones. I hope I got everyone, but we're winding down. I really need to kind of... I'll have to end this. I know I wanted to make sure that I addressed a lot of those concerns that were out there to make sure that we kind of covered those. I felt that, again, that was very important. Read through those plans. Let us know. Understand that we're still adapting and going through. Things will look different. Right now, Keisha has zero guidance for us when it comes to activities and athletics, which is drastically different than our state. I was surprised with that, to tell you the truth. And I know that in itself causes concerns and issues and doesn't make sense from a common sense level. How can we have all these precautions in school and yet a contact sport is no big deal? I don't know. From me, to be very honest, and I'll tell this to anybody on Keisha, it doesn't make sense to me. If we have this guidance from the state that tells us it's not safe, that we should have these coverings, that we shouldn't be doing this, then why wouldn't that apply to a contact sport? I can't tell you. But the reality is they haven't told us otherwise, and until they do, we'll operate with the guidance that we have. And so again, that is one thing that's up for continued discussion as well. For now, we're moving forward with that. On the other hand, again, not to sound that I don't, because I'm a huge supporter of activities and athletics. For me, myself, and many of our students, School would not be what it is without that. The character, the things that they're exposed to far outweigh the health concerns. So from that standpoint, I do understand. But again, we are doing some things that above and beyond outside as far as recommendations. We'll be disinfecting every evening. We've got basically handheld wands that have disinfectant that are electrostatic charged that will be sprayed on there. We'll be looking at distancing when they don't need to be around. So we're going to do everything that we can to provide a safe environment for those for as long as we can until we receive guidance otherwise. Let's see. A tough first year. There's no doubt. And again, the only thing that I would say for a true first year student in school, and again, they may have attended student school otherwise, but for a true first year kid, one thing to think about, they don't know otherwise what school is like. So the idea of them coming to school, and I know it's heartbreaking for us. It's heartbreaking for me to have these discussions with my own children and to talk with them together about what the day is going to be like, because they know a world without masks. They know a world without those safety precautions. However, for a brand new student, they don't know any different. And so, again, I don't want to say that there's a positive out of it, but if there's a silver lining, it's simply that for our kids that haven't been yet, for our kids that haven't had the experience that we're used to as adults and our kids are already, it's going to be, that's what school is to them. And I think you'll see as we go along, we are going to facilitate multiple breaks. We are going to facilitate learning outside of the classroom and provide those opportunities for those coverings to come off. By no means is our expectation that for 7.5 hours a day that these things will never come off except to eat. That cannot and will not happen as we go through. We have to provide that opportunity to allow that to ease back into it. But again, in a safe way where we're distanced and where we're not potentially exposing individuals, especially that are high at risk. That's a huge concern for us as we go through. All right, anything else? I've got about a minute left before this kind of goes through as we kind of close out. Just a reminder, make sure that you check out our Pup Nation YouTube station. Again, we've got that on there, so you just search for hashtag Pup Nation. This video will be uploaded later along with another one that went out. All that stuff is there. Just look under district information that's there and available, and so that'll be a good thing for you guys to see. That's available as well. Again, just want to reassure you. I know there's more questions. I know there's probably more after this live feed than there were before you got here. Hopefully not. Hopefully some of them were answered. Please reach out directly. Call me, email me, come in and see me, whatever it may be. Again, if you see me out mowing, just wave me down. Maybe I'll have you help me out a little bit and help finish the yard and we can talk. But whatever it is, let us address those as we go through. We know there's questions out there. But again, in the end, just like we always have, we will do this together as a community. Pup Nation, our Bullpup family, Caney is unique. There is no, and I've said this time and time again, no place that I would rather be. No place. I'm extremely blessed to be a part of this community. The amazing students, staff, community. That's why I know, despite everything that we're going to face, we're going to do it to the best of our ability. We've got the safety measures that we've been given to us and the guidance. We'll follow those. We'll do everything that we can to, again, work with our remote learners so they have a great experience. And then we hope that, again, that we see you guys face-to-face. But understand that it's going to navigate. It's going to change. We're going to work through it. We're going to be adaptable. But in the end, together, we can do this. I have no doubt. I have no doubt that in the end, we're going to come out the other side of this. So with that, I'll close out tonight. Appreciate you guys all joining in. Always appreciate the continued support. Thank you very much. You guys have a great evening.